the divide by the unexpected separation. But I guess they felt more so because of the daunting task ahead, that of building up the new local church in a situation of deprivation and poverty. They were least prepared for this eventuality. They were very few to begin with, a measly 19 of them in the Presbyterium, and the resources at hand were too scarce. The dowry that came from the Mother Church, in some measure already sizable at that time, did very little to provide the much needed comfort. But move on they must, as there was hardly anything they could do to reverse the situation. At first they had no choice but to depend on the resources of the Mother Diocese. For one thing, the prelature had no pastoral program of its own. Most of what was done in the parishes simply had to follow and replicate the Wesley structure and framework in Cáceres. Its priests and church personnel had to be enrolled into the health insurance system of the Diocese of Origin, since it was not just possible to set up its own. Indeed, during those first few years of existence, the prelature could not quite separate itself completely from the Mother Diocese. It was, however, becoming clear that the prelature had to establish its own identity as a local church. It had to set up its own organizational structure and make it function efficiently according to the norms of canon law. It had to determine and harness its own resources to ensure its stability in its operations. Most importantly, it must find a way of carrying out the work of evangelization on its own and provide the means to support its various apostolates. At first, it looked as though this was going to take a long time, but a breakthrough came on January 20 to February 17, 1991, only a year or so after the prelature was established. The Philippine hierarchy convened the historic Second Plenary Council of the Philippines in Manila. It gave the prelature occasion to conduct consultations and conferences in the parishes aimed at obtaining an adequate picture of the situation of the local church. The exercise yielded a conclusion that a different situation was slowly evolving in the prelature with its own peculiar needs and problems that were quite distinct from those of the Mother Church. When the prelature's delegates came back from the council, they brought home with them an insight that would turn out to determine the future agenda in the life and mission of the local church of Libmanan, and that is the council's delineation of the image of the church in the Philippines as a community of disciples and the church of the poor. Inspired by such insight and wanting to give it concrete expression, Bishop Arellano called for a pastoral consultation that further evolved into what is now called the First Pastoral Assembly of the Prelature of Libmanan. The most significant accomplishment of this gathering was that for the first time in its existence, the prelature was able to define its own identity around a vision of its being a local church and formulate its own mission statement. According to such vision, the local church of Libmanan aspired to become a renewed church characterized by an evangelized and evangelizing community of disciples, journeying with Christ in the poor for the total transformation of creation. This was to be realized through a commitment to holistic, integral, enculturated evangelization, participative ministry to witnessing small faith communities, and the responsible stewardship of creation. Obviously, this was only the first step. The hard part was how to give flesh to such vision and mission. While efforts were initiated and pursued towards this end, the bishop undertook the strenuous task of pastoral visitation of the parishes. His purpose was not only canonical. He wanted to see if the parishes were moving along the direction set forth by the pastoral assembly, and if a pastoral program was in place in every parish. But if there was one thing that these visits generated, it was the realization on the part of the bishop that pastoral services could be improved if there were more parishes in the prelature. And so it was that he started creating new parishes in 1994, so that by 2008, the number of parishes has already increased from the 16 pioneering parishes to the present 27, or an additional of 11 parishes within the last 20 years. Quite providentially, vocations to the priesthood have also increased. By 2008, the number of priests in the prelature rose to 32 from the original 19, who initially served the prelature, making it possible to sustain the trend of creating new parishes. And this was so, not counting those who opted to leave and serve in other dioceses as missionaries. But while creating new parishes ensured improvement in pastoral services and the administration of the sacraments, this was obviously only half of the entire picture of what the life and mission of the local church should entail according to the vision and mission of the prelature. More important to us was whether the faithful truly had the sense of being church and of being community and the sense of belonging that is required, and whether this sense of being church was rooted in the gospel. This was the question that the Second Pastoral Assembly of the Prelature of Libmanan, convened on March 15 to 18, 19 and 94, had to address. During the assembly, the participants expressed their disappointments and frustrations in the way pastoral initiatives were being carried out. But then all these generated yet another breakthrough in the history of the Church of Libmanan, the formulation of the 5-year Comprehensive Pastoral Development Program. The participants were one in urging that the prelature must always project the image of a renewed church, its life and mission. Finally, they all expressed the desire of having as end product of all their efforts the formation of small Christian communities in all the parishes, what was going to be called the Saradit na Cristianong Comunidad, or the SKK, as they are now more expediently called. From now on, it was the SKK that would give concrete face to the Church of Libmanan. From now on, it was the SKK that would give flesh to the renewed church that the prelature had always dreamt of becoming one day. While everything looked bright on paper, the real challenge remained how to make the SKK a living reality. Things had to start somehow, somewhere. It was a courageous parish priest in Cabusao who had the audacity to make the first bold step. He started organizing his parishioners around traditional activities and events that could keep them together every month during the whole year, and only then introduce into these gatherings values formation, evangelization, and catechesis. To his surprise, people started gravitating around these monthly activities until such time that he was able to eventually form them into smaller communities. He grouped together families into clusters and chose cluster leaders who were given the responsibility of coordinating their group's activities. Easy as all this may sound to be, it required utmost commitment, hard work, and dedication on the part of the parish priest. But soon the experience paid off as communities of families began to take shape in the various villages in the parish. Soon enough, these communities became more and more involved in the life of the parish. Successful as this pioneering effort might have been, the other priests, even the bishop himself, continued to have doubts if the Cabusao experience could be duplicated in the other parishes of the prelature. The strategy worked in Cabusao, they thought, because it was small and manageable. There were thus nagging fears that the same strategy might not just work if it were to be implemented in larger parishes. Such skepticism, however, would eventually be proven wrong. When the SKK was introduced here at St. James Parish, Libmanan, unmistakably one of the largest parishes in the prelature, it was such a resounding success. And then there was Lupi, a parish different from both Cabusao and Libmanan in that it had a different terrain, many of its villages being remotely and inaccessibly situated in the mountainous areas of the parish. But here too, the SKK flourished. From these three pioneering experiences, however tentative and experimental they might have been,